Analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and of changing these decisions slowly, if and when they were changed at all.
All right, Mr. Hill. It's a pleasure to have you with us again. Today, I'd like to dive into one of your principles that, on the surface, seems perhaps the most straightforward. But I suspect it holds some of the deepest layers of all. The principle of decision.
I am glad you have chosen this topic, Dr. Sinclair, for it has been my observation that this, more than anything else, is the true dividing line between success and failure.
Exactly. And the common understanding, the surface-level takeaway from your work, is that successful people just decide quickly, as if there's some inherent virtue in speed itself, as if it's a race to a choice. Is that an accurate take?
That interpretation, while common, is merely the outer shell of the principle. Yes, speed is an observable byproduct, but the core of the matter is something else entirely. For now, however, let's stay with that idea. Successful men and women do not waste time with indecision, with procrastination. They know it to be the thief of opportunity.
You see, that's precisely where I, as a modern psychologist, run into a challenge. You were writing in an era where options, information sources, were perhaps more limited. But today? Mr. Hill, today we are drowning in an infinite ocean of information and choice. We face concepts that may not have existed in the same way in your time.
Such as?
Well, for one, there's a well-documented phenomenon we now call analysis paralysis. This is where there is so much data, so many articles, videos, opinions, and options for every small decision that our brain, out of fear of making the wrong choice, simply shuts down. It makes no choice at all, from choosing a new career path to buying a simple appliance.
Go on.
On the other hand, we have this pervasive anxiety known as fear of missing out, or FOMO, which has its grip on almost everyone. We're constantly worried that our choice might not be the best possible choice, that if we commit to this path, we might miss out on an even better one. So in a world like this, in this storm of information, you tell a young person in their 20s to decide quickly. Well, doesn't that advice seem a little dangerous? Our culture, our adages, they all tell us haste makes waste. Isn't your advice in practice an encouragement of recklessness and, by extension, catastrophic mistakes?
That is a remarkably precise question, Dr. Sinclair, and I'm glad you've asked it, because it strikes at the very heart of the greatest misunderstanding of this principle.
So the danger, the recklessness, it's real?
No. You see, you and all who raise this challenge are operating on a false premise. You are working under the assumption that speed is the goal, when in fact, speed is merely a result, a byproduct.
A result? A result of what?
A result of having a definite chief aim, an unwavering clarity about where it is you intend to go. The analysis paralysis you spoke of occurs when you're standing at a crossroads with no idea which city is your destination. Of course you will be confused. But when you know, with every fiber of your being, that you are heading toward a specific destination, choosing the right road is no longer a complex analysis. It is an obvious, logical step.
That is a completely different frame. So you're not saying be fast, you're saying be clear, and speed will follow.
Precisely.
That theory is brilliant on paper, but it feels very abstract. Mr. Hill, can you bring this idea to life for us with a real story? A major example, a decision where it wasn't just about money or business, but where life and death were truly on the line. A decision where definiteness of purpose meant everything.
Very well. Then allow me to take you to a hot, tense room in Philadelphia. The date is the 4th of July, 1776.
The signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Yes. Imagine it. 56 men are gathered in that room. Men from all walks of life, lawyers, merchants, farmers. And on a table before them lies a document which, if signed, would officially declare them rebels against the most powerful empire on earth at the time, Great Britain.
And the punishment for rebellion against the king was death.
Precisely. Not as a possibility, but as a certainty. Every single man in that room knew that by putting his signature on that parchment, he was in effect signing his own death warrant. He was pledging his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. John Hancock, the first to sign, did so with a famously large script so that, as he said, King George can read that without his spectacles.
That's beyond courage. That's a kind of absolute certainty.
And now here is the question, Dr. Sinclair. Did those men suffer from analysis paralysis? Did they say, let's just analyze this for a few more months? Did they suffer from a fear of missing out on a chance to reconcile?
Clearly not.
Why? Because their chief aim, independence, the creation of a new nation founded on the principle of liberty, was so clear, so powerful, and so sacred to them that every other option, such as doubt, fear, or compromise, was completely swept from the table. Their decision in that moment was prompt because the real decision, the commitment to that great purpose, had been made in their hearts and minds long before. The signing of the document was merely a formality to make official a decision that was already made. They were not influenced by the opinions of others. They were the creators of a new opinion. That is the power of a definite purpose.
Wow, that's incredible. When you frame the story that way, it's like a light just switched on in my mind. So for those 56 men, it wasn't their speed in signing that mattered at all. It was their clarity in the why behind the signature.
Please continue.
Which means all of that analysis paralysis, all that FOMO, the fear of missing out that I talked about in our modern world, they aren't the actual problem. They are really the symptoms of a much deeper condition. The condition of having no purpose.
Yes.
It's not analysis paralysis, it's purpose paralysis. When you don't know exactly what you want, when you don't have a definite chief aim, your brain has no criteria by which to judge the options. Everything seems to have equal weight. Going left, right, or straight, it makes no difference. And because no path has a clear advantage, you end up choosing no path at all. You remain frozen in place.
You have struck the very heart of the matter, Dr. Sinclair. That is precisely why the first and most important principle in my entire philosophy, before all others, is having a definite chief aim. Without it, all the other principles become meaningless and ineffective.
And that purpose gives you a compass.
It gives you more than a compass. It gives you a shield against the greatest, and I would say the most insidious enemy of success.
Which is indecision itself.
Yes. And what is the root of indecision? Leaving one's mind open to the opinions of others. You see, the person with no definite purpose allows anyone and everyone to plant seeds of doubt in their mind. Their mind is like a ship with no rudder, tossed about in a stormy ocean of opinions, the opinions of parents, friends, colleagues, the daily news. Each one pushes the ship in a different direction, and eventually that ship goes nowhere. It just spins in circles until it sinks.
So, decisiveness is actually a form of mental discipline. It means you consciously choose which voices to listen to and which to ignore.
Precisely. The mind of a successful person is like a fortress, a heavily guarded fortress. They close the gates of their mind to irrelevant and destructive opinions and grant entry only to the information and counsel that aligns with their chief aim. They do not collect opinions, they create them. And that, Dr. Sinclair, makes all the difference in the world.
So, by that logic, this principle, this idea of clarity of purpose, it acts as a filter, a powerful automatic filter for all the noise and informational chaos of the modern world that I mentioned at the start.
That is exactly what it is, an automatic filter.
Let's use a concrete contemporary example to make it real for our audience. Let's say a person's definite chief aim is to become a top-tier software engineer specializing in artificial intelligence. They have accepted this as their mission and are completely focused on it.
Very well.
In that case, the fear of missing out, or FOMO, about attending a seminar on real estate investing that a friend recommends, it becomes meaningless. It doesn't pass through the filter. That anxiety vanishes because it's irrelevant to the primary goal.
That is entirely correct.
And the analysis paralysis that happens when choosing between 10 different coding boot camps, it's no longer paralyzing. The metric for judgment changes. The question in their mind shifts from the impossible, which of these is the absolute best, to the simple, which of these will get me to my specific goal of becoming a top-tier AI engineer most effectively and efficiently. It changes the entire game. The questions become fewer and the answers become clearer.
A perfect application of the principle to your world. And now, perhaps you see why I place so much emphasis on another principle, one that is an inseparable companion to this one, the principle of the mastermind.
That's interesting. I've always thought of a mastermind group as, well, consulting with more smart people. But what you said earlier about the danger of random opinions seems to contradict that. How do those two ideas fit together?
That is a very common misunderstanding. The mastermind principle is not about gathering more opinions. It is about creating a perfect harmony between two or more minds who are allied for a definite purpose. It means you do not consult with just anyone. You form a strategic alliance with individuals whom you trust completely and who you know are aligned with your goals, working with you in a spirit of perfect cooperation.
So the difference is the alignment of those individuals with our purpose.
Precisely. When you ask a friend or relative who has no true understanding of your goals for their input, you are getting their personal opinion, which is often clouded by their own fears and limitations. But when you speak with a member of your mastermind alliance, you are receiving strategic counsel. The first makes you weak and hesitant. The second makes you strong and decisive.
All right, Mr. Hill. This analysis, this has been a genuine revelation. We've journeyed from the simple idea of decide fast to the profound concept of clarity of purpose. Now, for our audience listening right now thinking, okay, I'm convinced. I want to start practicing this tomorrow. What specific practical steps do you recommend? How do we strengthen this decision-making muscle that may have weakened over the years?
An excellent question. For knowledge without application is merely potential left unused. There are two specific exercises I would propose, one for small decisions and one for large ones.
I'm eager to hear them.
For the small, everyday decisions, things like choosing a film to watch, a book to read, or even a meal from a menu, I suggest you use what I call the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule.
Yes, give yourself only 2 minutes, no more, to review the options and make a choice. Once the 2 minutes are up, you make your decision and you do not look back. The goal here is not to make the single best choice in the universe. The goal is to practice the act of choosing itself and then standing by it. With this, you are commanding your own mind, I am a decisive person. It is an exercise in building a new habit.
That's fantastic. A simple exercise to overcome the habit of procrastination. And for the big decisions, career change, starting a business?
For the big decisions, you must do the exact opposite. Instead of asking 10 friends and acquaintances for their input and drowning yourself in a sea of conflicting opinions, consult with only 1 or 2 members of your mastermind alliance. Only those individuals in whom you have complete trust and who you know for a fact are aligned with your aims. Listen to their counsel carefully, analyze it, but in the end, you must remember this: the final decision is always and only yours, as is the responsibility. You are the captain of your own ship.
So, in the end, after all of this, I think this principle leaves us with a very clear and powerful image. At the crossroads of life, a successful person is like a professional race car driver. They take the turn with speed and confidence because they know the overall track and exactly where the finish line is. But an indecisive person is like someone who has stopped their car in the middle of a busy highway trying to ask for directions from every car that speeds past. In the end, not only do they never reach a destination, but they risk a catastrophic collision and getting wiped out completely. Decisiveness is not a product of speed. It is a product of clarity. What one decision have you been postponing for far too long? What definite chief aim would make that decision clear?